Welcome to the Alaska Weather Show. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan, coming to you from the National Weather Service on this Sunday, October 3rd, 2021. And as always, if you'd like additional weather information, some details on some of the things I've talked about, you can go to weather.gov/Alaska. If you have any questions, comments, interesting photos, or observations you'd like to share, you can reach me at peter.chan@noaa.gov. And in our weather headlines, well, today, Sunday, October 3rd through the 9th, marks Alaska Winter Preparedness Week. No kidding. Many of us have already experienced a couple of rounds of winter weather. We still have a few warnings and advisories that'll be winding down early this Sunday evening. I'll show you those in just a moment. The next significant weather maker is the remnants of Typhoon Mendel that's transitioning to a Bering Sea low that'll bring an occluded front into the western part of the state with some wind, rain, and snow that'll be spreading into the interior inland as we work through especially Tuesday and Wednesday. That'll bring elevated surf, and some areas, especially the Brooks Range, could pick up several inches of snow later Monday through Wednesday. We'll also take a look at the temperature and precipitation outlook for the month of October that includes the lower 48 and Alaska. So Winter Weather Preparedness Week begins this Sunday, October 3rd through the 9th, and Governor Mike Dunleavy has proclaimed that for the state of Alaska and wants everyone to be prepared because winter can be a challenging time, but it also can be a very fun time. The weather and all, it's very beautiful. Alaska is a very beautiful place to be, but the main thing is as we go through this week, we'll have some slides to highlight some winter weather phenomena, some safety, as well as things you could do to better prepare yourself, your family, vehicles, things like that, as we delve deeper into what has already been a taste of winter. All right, we have winter storm warnings still in effect for east central areas along the Elkin, including the central eastern Alaska range till 7 p.m. As much as 6 to 12 inches of snow has fallen in this area, with perhaps another inch or so possible through early this evening. Winter weather advisory remains further north and west through Fort Yukon, Fairbanks, Tanana, and that will be allowed to expire as well at 7 p.m. this Sunday evening. So things will begin to quiet down finally, as that Gulf low really did produce not just a powerful storm that struck the Panhandle with hurricane force winds and 2 to 4 inches of rain, it also provided the moisture that brought that early season winter storm for east central and southeast interior part of the state. So looking at the satellite imagery, you can see a little bit of a counterclockwise circulation that remains over the Gulf. Still a lot of white enhanced clouds over the Yukon, trailing back some lower clouds, still producing some lighter snow there in through east central areas of the state. Further west, though, the main weather features that comma curl, that comma head or curl you see in the clouds on the left side of your screen north of Shemya. That is the remnants of the typhoon that's transitioning now to what we call an extratropical low pressure system as it works its way up off the Russian coast, the west side of the Bering. This low has an occluded front extending southward from it that'll be working its way through the Aleutians tonight and early tomorrow, then making landfall in along the west coast Monday night into Tuesday. And with it, we do expect rain that'll be transitioning over to some snow as that precipitation works its way inland from the west side of the state, where there is colder air in place now up through the middle and north of the Yukon River. And this is not all that unheard of, but certainly been a bit of an active weather pattern. We've seen winter conditions come to the state now a few weeks earlier than normal. A lot of people are hoping to have some mild fall weather to kind of get some preparation, a few things done around the house, but we haven't had much of that opportunity with some of the wet and snowy weather that has settled in here. Here's that low pressure that continues to weaken and fill over the Gulf there, and then a trough that legs back up through the middle upper Yukon Valley with areas of lighter snow that'll continue to diminish as we go through tonight. And then back to the west, low pressure down near 960 millibars off the Kamchatka coast is going to work its way northeastward just off the Russian coast and up through the western Bering. That is the one that will bring the occluded front as it continues to work eastward through the Aleutians tonight. There is a little surge of warmer air ahead of it, so temperatures will be a little milder, perhaps in the lower mid-50s along the Aleutian chain up into the Alaska Peninsula as we go through the day on Monday and even into Tuesday. Winds ahead of that front, southeast and south, will be turning around to the south-southwest. And we could see some near gale force winds with that front as it works its way inland along the west coast, along with areas of rain that will transition to snow as it encounters the colder air that resides over the interior of the state. And then as we go through Tuesday, you can see the occluded front kind of breaks up and weakens as it crosses the southwest interior into a couple of troughs. And as that precipitation spreads further inland, it will overspread the central Brooks Range, where I mentioned several inches of snow could fall through Wednesday. Well, looking at expected wind gusts on the order of up 35 miles an hour or so along the coastal areas of the west, particularly the YK deltas on up into Norton Sound. And into Tuesday, as the front presses inland, we'll still see south-southwest winds potentially gusting there upwards of 30 to near 35 miles an hour at times. It could lead to some elevated surf. Rainfall amounts, Nome could pick up around a half to a little over an inch of rain on Monday, and additional rainfall expected along western coastal areas extending down toward Dillingham and also spreading inland to McGrath and just knocking on the door of Anchorage on up to near Bettles. Still west, though, of Fairbanks, but that moisture will continue to press inland as we head through midweek on Wednesday. Low temperatures for Monday morning will generally be mid-upper 30s in the Panhandle. Chillier, though, where there's some breaks, get down the teens, Copper River Basin, and 20s below freezing. But coastal areas will manage to stay up just above freezing, places like Homer, down especially toward Kodiak and King Salmon. And then temperatures Monday afternoon will get back up into the 40s, maybe 50-ish there at Craig and Ketchikan, and elsewhere to the west as you get back further toward King Salmon. Otherwise, 40s generally the rule. And Tuesday morning, we should see lows again, weak ridge of high pressure passing through tomorrow and early Tuesday. Could allow temperatures to dip down into the teens along the Alcan border of the southeast interior. A few spots down near freezing if there are some breaks in the Panhandle, Haines and maybe Petersburg. And then to the west, also temperatures creeping upwards there along the Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, near 40 or so, with highs Tuesday area-wide, generally in the 40s. There could be a few lower 50s showing up along the outer areas of the Panhandle, Craig, Sitka, as well as Kodiak down toward King Salmon. And then Monday morning, lows will generally be in the teens and 20s across much of the northern and central areas of the state, near freezing as you get along the immediate coast, Imanak. And then as we go for Monday afternoon, highs generally getting back up a bit above freezing, mid-upper 30s there, near and south of the Yukon River, generally at or below freezing further north through the Brooks Range North Slope areas. Tuesday morning, we are looking for lows to be in the teens and 20s, except for in the west, the Seward Peninsula and the YK deltas will see readings above freezing, mid-upper 30s with that push of slightly milder air coming in off the Bering. And of course, the falling precipitation will help act as to warm things a little bit. And temperatures Tuesday afternoon only stay below freezing, Brooks Range and Arctic coast, but generally get up into the mid-upper 30s across central interior and lower mid-40s, a little milder weather there as we get it over from St. Lawrence Island down through the Seward and into the west coast areas. Morning lows for the southwest will be below freezing, some teens, 20s west side of the Alaska Range Monday morning, otherwise lower mid-40s out across the Aleutians. Monday afternoon, warmest temperatures will be out there through the southern half of the Alaska Peninsula and Aleutians, lower, maybe even mid-50s in a few spots. 40s along the southwest coast, Nunavik Island. And then lows Tuesday morning still could be down near freezing as we get up toward the middle Yukon Valley, upper Kuskokwim Valley, but with the thicker cloud cover, strong southerly milder flow, lows could be lower 40s along the coast and 40s in general throughout the Aleutians, with temperatures Tuesday afternoon moderating back up into the 40s to lower 50s across much of the area. Again, on Tuesday afternoon, that'll be a brief, milder spell. The 30-day temperature and precipitation outlook. This is for all the U.S., continental U.S. above normal, centered on the Great Lakes, upper Midwest, with above normal precipitation in the Midwest around Kansas, Nebraska, Missouri, Oklahoma, Northwest Arkansas. If we look at Alaska, the little image there below normal temperatures are expected across much of the state, especially the southeast portion and panhandle, with below normal precipitation around Cook Inlet, south central areas, but above normal precipitation a possibility for the southern half of the panhandle. And the outlook for October 9th through the 13th, centered on October 11th, shows temperature will average around normal throughout most of the Northwest, near or below normal southeast and the panhandle, with precipitation still looking to average above normal, centered on the southwest part of the state here as we head into the middle part of the month.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
We're going to move on now to your flight weather. And if you are planning a flight to Monday and to Tuesday, the main weather feature we're going to be focused on is the low pressure in the Bering that's part of the remnants of a typhoon, Mindel. And this system is going to bring a push of briefly milder air up into the central eastern Aleutians, up into the tip of the Alaska Peninsula. While ahead of it, we expect a pretty strong occluded front that'll have winds, as well as some rain and snow with it as it slams into the west coast. And IFR conditions will increase there along the west coast, portions of the Seward Peninsula, back out over the Bering from the eastern Aleutians on up into the tip of the Alaska Peninsula. By Tuesday morning, we'll see IFR also expand eastward out into the Brooks Range in the northeast part of the state, but otherwise the main action being across the west and southwest, and then back out over the Bering, where IFR conditions will be widespread. And look for those IFR conditions to spread a little further inland Tuesday afternoon and on up into Cook Inlet and especially north half of Kodiak Island. So past conditions on Monday, AKwx, we'll see MVFR conditions become VFR. That'll also be the case for Atigan. Further south and west, Lake Clark should hold on to VFR conditions on Monday. Merrill will see MVFR become VFR. And as we round the west side of the Alaska Range, Rainy Pass should generally hold on to VFR conditions, but Windy Pass will be MVFR in the morning, becoming VFR, as will also Isabel. And then further east, also look for Mentasta to start out Monday morning, MVFR becoming VFR. Further south and west of there, Tanita will enjoy VFR conditions, as will Portage on Monday with VFR conditions. And then finally, a check into the northern panhandle, Chilkoot and White will see VFR conditions after a stormy weekend. And freezing levels, at least at the surface in the morning on Monday, will be all the way down to Kodiak Island, and it's beginning to extend out into the Alaska Peninsula, perhaps around King Salmon. Much of the interior could see temperatures at or below freezing, and freezing levels will be highest out toward the central Aleutians, where they may briefly rise up to near 10,000 feet along the occluded front that'll be working its way east-northeastward and pushing into the west coast as we go through the day Monday and into early Tuesday. Greatest threat for icing will exist out there over the Bering, especially the northern half, including Nunavik Island, portions of the southwest coast, St. Lawrence, back toward eastern Russia, between 8,000 feet and a flight level of 18,000 feet as that low continues to work its way east-northeastward up there through the northwest Bering Sea. Out across the northeast Arctic coast above 12 to perhaps 2 to 12,000 feet, and then along the Alcan border between 4 and 14,000 feet, and then generally above areas of clouds there above 5,000 feet, the lower panhandle, especially Haida Gwaii into British Columbia. Here are the jet stream level winds, 30,000 feet. Out there to the east, we have a broad belt of 125 to 130 knot southwesterly jet core winds that are coming into British Columbia, but more importantly, back out across the Aleutians, eastern central Aleutians, lower Bering. We're seeing winds out of the west there upwards to 120 knots, helping to spin up that particular low there in the western Bering, and a broad area of 55 to 70 knot winds covering much of the central southern Bering and Aleutian chains on Monday at 9,000 feet, and then finally bringing it down to 3,000 feet We see a core of winds in excess of 50 to near 60 knots, covering much of the southwest bearing and the western half of the Aleutian chain. And some of those winds in advance with that particular occluded front ahead of it, we could see south-southwest winds upwards to 50 knots there in the YK deltas, which would lend towards some turbulence. And as we take a look here at the map, for turbulence, the greatest threat will exist across southwest coastal areas between the surface and 4,000 feet. We'll also see some areas of turbulence up toward the Seward Peninsula and St. Lawrence between the surface and 4,000 feet. And then finally, extending from the Alaska Peninsula along and behind that occluded front back out into the eastern and central Aleutians between the surface and 3,000 feet. So there's your flight weather, and if you are planning a flight, certainly check the latest conditions and forecast and have a safe one.
We try to provide everyone with the best forecast we can for snow, sleet, and ice in the winter with as much notice as we can. And we've made great strides in our forecasting over the years. However, given the complexity in winter weather forecasting, the first forecast simply won't be as good as the one closer to the event. As the event nears, our forecasts will become more precise.
Forecasts are updated constantly from days before the event until the precipitation actually begins. If you want the most accurate and up-to-date information, you have to check the forecast frequently.
It's very unlikely that any computer model snow amount forecast, especially days in advance, will be exactly right. Sometimes it's even difficult to forecast amounts the day of the event. Don't focus so much on exact numbers. Our forecast offices produce a range of possibilities available on each office's winter page.
Impacts from winter storms can vary a lot across even short distances, especially true in the terrain of the mountains, but even in areas with more subtle differences in elevation. Just because it's not bad where you are doesn't mean that it isn't bad just a short distance away.
There's often a small area, perhaps not bigger than a couple of counties, of heavy snow embedded within the larger area of precipitation. It is very difficult to pinpoint exactly where this area will occur in advance. That is why we give ranges and probabilities, and that is what we mean when we say isolated higher amounts.
Not all storms are the same. Some storms affect different areas in different ways, and even weaker storms can produce big impacts. The Winter Storm Severity Index is a product that uses threat levels to depict overall anticipated impacts to society due to winter weather.
You can be a citizen scientist. You can report the weather that is occurring at your location any time of day. Local National Weather Service forecast offices offer Skywarn Storm Spotter training, so you can become an official Skywarn Storm Spotter. The MPing app and website allows you to submit your report online. And for the most dedicated, you can join CocoRaws, where you can submit your daily precipitation report directly to the National Weather Service. Your ground truth helps us improve forecasts.
Did you know that a 1 to 2 degree temperature difference either at the surface or just a few hundred feet off the ground can make a big difference in whether we get rain, freezing rain, sleet, or snow? That's really hard to forecast when we don't have a lot of data, but thankfully we do have 92 upper air stations that release weather balloons at least twice a day.
Even if you live in warmer climates, it's important to know your winter precipitation types when traveling. Freezing rain is liquid rain that freezes when it hits the ground, creating a coat of ice on roads, walkways, trees, and power lines. Sleet is rain that freezes into ice pellets before reaching the ground.
Snow squalls are quick, intense bursts of heavy snow that are accompanied by gusty winds. They rapidly reduce visibility and can create treacherous travel. Snow squall warnings are issued for localized areas where snow squalls are expected in the next 30 to 60 minutes. As of December 2019, they are now sent as one of the wireless emergency alerts.
Know the differences between watches, warnings, and advisories. A winter storm warning means that confidence is high that a winter storm will produce heavy wintry precipitation and cause significant impacts. A winter storm watch means that confidence is medium and that a winter storm producing significant impacts is possible. A winter weather advisory means to exercise caution as light amounts of wintry precipitation will cause slick conditions and may impact travel.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back to the show, and now it's time for marine weather. We start out with the sea ice edge, and we are starting to see some ice beginning to form now along the Arctic coast, northwest coasts, particularly between Point Lay and Wainwright. There's also a little bit of ice starting to show up now around Kotzebue Sound, and this will be the case as we continue to see colder temperatures settle in here as we dive deeper into fall, though. There's going to be a brief, milder stretch of some warmer weather, especially along the southwest coast, as we go through early this week in response to warmer southerly winds with an occluded front. But across the Gulf, much quieter conditions than earlier this weekend. We are looking on Monday for winds to be somewhat variable around 10 knots, generally though more northwesterly through the inner channels with waves maybe running a couple feet, maybe 3 to 5 feet down toward Ketchikan and Metlakatla. Otherwise, out along the outer coast there, winds will be somewhat offshore, 10 to 15 knots, waves 7 to 9 feet, though falling off west of Yakutat, where winds will become more variable out over the northern and western Gulf. And then on Tuesday, look for generally northerly winds, 10 to as high as 20 knots down there toward Dixon Entrance, and waves 2 to maybe 3-4 feet there south of Ketchikan. And then out over the open waters of the Gulf there as we get back along the coastal areas, the outer coast, 15 to maybe as high as 25 knots near Craig, waves 5 to 7 feet, and winds will be a little more west-southwest there west of Yakutat with waves of 3 to 4 feet. South central areas, the northern Gulf, northwest Gulf coast there, variable winds only around 10 knots, waves 2 feet there in Prince William Sound and along a good portion of the Cook Inlet north of Homer to Kenai and Anchorage, and perhaps 20 to 25 knot northwesterly winds Kodiak on up toward the mouth of Cook Inlet with 4 to 5 foot waves. Look for variable winds, still 10-15 knots, at least out over the east side there through Prince William Sound, waves a few feet, but picking up from the south through Cook Inlet, 10 to as high as 20 knots there once you get west of Homer and down toward Kodiak with waves of 3 to 5 feet. Across the Alaska Peninsula, winds will be west-southwest, 15 to 20 knots or so, waves 3 to 4 feet, but picking up to 30 knots as we get further out along the Alaska Peninsula in response to that approaching occluded front, waves 7 to 8 feet either side there, Bering or North Pacific. And then on Tuesday, look for south winds around Kodiak Island, 15 knots, waves 3 to 4 feet. But south-southwest, 20 to 25 knots along the length of the Alaska Peninsula with highest waves once you get north there of Cold Bay, 10-footers on the Bering side. And then looking at the Aleutian chain, winds will generally be central eastern Aleutians out of the southwest at 25 to 30 knots, waves 9 to 11 feet either side. But as we get west of Adak, look for 35 to 40 knot gales from the southwest with waves 16 feet west of Adak and up around and over 20 feet, Kiska to Shimia. And then on Tuesday, overall across the Aleutian chain, winds will be out of the southwest around 25 to 30 knots, waves 8 to 11 feet on the North Pacific side, and running around 12 to 13 feet on the Bering side. And across the west coast, we're going to see winds picking up from the south upwards to 30 knots on Monday. Waves generally 10 to 12 feet from south of St. Lawrence Island down to east of St. Paul and St. George, with stronger winds and waves west of St. Matthew and St. Paul and St. George. And then on Tuesday, the included front works its way inland, and in the wake of that, look for south-southwest winds, generally 30 to near 35 knot gales. Away from the coast, waves could build as high as 15 to 19 feet from St. Paul and St. George north through St. Matthew, whereas in Norton Sound, we're looking at winds southerly at 25 knots and waves 5 feet. Along the Arctic coast, winds will be out of the east-southeast 15 knots, waves 5 feet. They'll pick up through the Bering Strait, southeasterly winds 30 knots, waves 6 to perhaps 10 feet there north of St. Lawrence. And then on Tuesday, generally easterly winds along the Arctic coast and northwest coast at 20 knots, waves around 6 feet, but still around the east-southeast through the lower Chukchi Sea to 30 knots with waves of 9 to 11 feet. And there's that occluded front that'll be working its way into the west-central coast as we go into Monday afternoon. It'll push inland with rain and snow on Tuesday. And that's all the time I have. Thanks for watching.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.